In this lesson, The Power of Simplicity in Investing, we discussed the three fund portfolio. I'd like you to go to some additional information that we have on the three fund portfolio or the lazy investor, and I have a link here that I'd like you to click on. And you can read this over for additional information, but it gives you an important link to sort of the beginnings of the lazy portfolio. And this is found on the bogleheads.org website. And who are the Bogleheads? Well, the Bogleheads are a group of people that follow the investing philosophy of John Bogle. And John was the founder of Vanguard. And he was sort of like the beginning person who used index funds or low fee funds to create, to have successful investing. And on this website, it discusses the two fund portfolio, which is the total world market. I mean, that's the simplest. But we also talk about the lazy portfolio, which is the three fund portfolio. And what I like here is you can see the total US stock market, which was one of our funds. They give you the ticker for that fund in Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. And they also mention ETFs, the tickers for that. So you could click on that and it will take you right to the Vanguard site where you can get more information on that particular fund. So I'm up here in Vanguard and I just want to point out some things here. First is the expense ratio, and you can see it's 0.04%. That's called 4 basis points, and that is low. That's a very low fee. The initial investment minimum is $3,000. If that's too much, then you could go with the ETF where you could start with $1. Information here that you can look at. What I like is the portfolio composition. And you can see this fund, this total stock market fund, contains over 3,000 stocks. So instead of just buying one or two stocks to try to be an investor and to try to beat the market, we're just buying the whole market. In fact, that follows John Bogle's philosophy. He once said, don't look for the needle in the haystack, just buy the haystack. And that's what we're doing here. We're buying the whole market. And this helps us to reduce volatility and risk. And it also gives us a good chance to at least match the market, meet the market, which grows at a very respectable rate. In fact, looking at some of the performance, you can see over the past 10 years, it had an average rate of 12.97% per year. Again, this is totally all stocks, so there's definitely high risk. But you can see the 5 years and 3 years and so on. And you can, so this is a good way to look at the funds. And you could do the same thing with the Fidelity. Just go back to our Lazy Portfolio website on the Bogleheads, and you can click on that ticker. And now this pops up the Fidelity Total Market Index. And again, you can see over the years what it gained on average for the past 10 years. It's 12.97%. And you can also go on to the composition. You can see we're totally 99% in domestic equities. Points out the sectors. And it even lists the top 10 holdings of the funds. And the Vanguard site does the same thing. So this is a good way. Oh, and I didn't mention the fee. So let's go back and look at the fee. And the fee for this fund, or the expense ratio, is 0.015. That is very low. And these are why these funds, the index funds, do well, almost as well as active managed funds, because the fees are so low. Back to our Boglehead site, they also give some other aspects of the lazy portfolio. And you just look at that. Here's the 4 fund portfolio where they add in real estate or REITs. And you can even go down, you can see they even start adding small cap value stocks or small blend, which is a mix of growth and value. So just different aspects of the lazy portfolio. But the goal is to try to keep it simple. 3 funds is good. You could do a little bit more. And I'll show you my calculator where I have a 6 fund portfolio that I use. Back on our website, we can scroll down and you can see here is an image of Joe's model portfolio. But actually, let's look at it in detail. I have 2 links here. One is for view-only access, where you just could view the spreadsheet or the Google Sheets. And this is good if you do not have a Google account. So you can just click on that and you will see the actual funds. You can see what I'm investing in. But you can't change anything. So if you go back, and this one, you click on this link, what it does is it lets you copy that fund and put it into your Google Drive. And then now you can edit it and save it and do things with it. So let's actually go on there and copy this file and put it in our Google Drive. So I copied it and it's now in the Google Drive that I'm using. And you can see, we're familiar with this. This is the allocation that shows you the glide path. As we age, we get closer to retirement. Let's say you're 30 years old, so we'll be looking at the aggressive or moderate, but we'll focus on the aggressive. 90% stocks, 10% bonds. We go down to our more detailed sheet. And here we are, 90% stocks, 10% bonds. This is the configuration I've set up. You could change that. For an example, if you want to be more international, you could just click on that number and you could change it to 30%. Then it changes everything over here. But note, we're over 105, so if you're going to add more percentage here, you gotta do less over there. So now it's 100%. So some people might want to be a little more invested in international. So if I'm 90-10, that means 54% of my investments will be in total stock market, 27% will be international, and then I'm sort of adding a little diversity by adding REITs, which is the real estate. So it'll be only 4.5%. And then I'm adding some small cap value. This will give me more diverse portfolio and hopefully get some little good gains. And that would be 4.5%. And for the bond section of the portfolio, we're using the total bond market index. And I can make that 100% if I want. And I would change that over here for the bond area. But I'm also adding some international bonds just to give, again, diversity. And some people say diversity is the only free lunch you get in investing. So I kind of want to be more diverse. So that would be 2%. Again, you could change these numbers over here. And if you want to change some of the other numbers, if you go up on the sheet, you can see protect sheet. I have it protected. you could go over here and you can actually delete this, because once you copy this and save it in your Google Drive, you now could then alter it and change things around.